Welcome to the Dharma journey, a space for returning to mindfulness, to presence, and to what is most real in this human life. In a world filled with noise and speed, where people rush, strive, and do everything they can to avoid suffering, we often forget something essential. Sometimes, healing doesn't begin with escape. It begins with the courage to stay, to listen to our pain, and to look deeply at it, as a natural part of being alive. You've probably heard the phrase, life is suffering. At first, it may sound heavy. Some may even call Buddhism pessimistic. But the truth is, this isn't a dark statement. It's the first noble truth, the foundation of awakening. A truth not meant to depress you, but to wake you up from illusion. The Buddha didn't say it to make you afraid. He said it as an invitation. Stop. Look deeply. And begin the path of true freedom. This video isn't here to offer comforting words or quick fixes. It won't promise that pain will disappear after a few breathing exercises. But if you stay with us, and listen with your whole heart, you may begin to see that suffering is not the end. Suffering can become the doorway to true healing. We created this channel, the Dharma Journey, as a quiet refuge amidst the noise. Each video here is a gentle reminder. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to show up, to breathe, and to be willing to look within, even when it's hard. If something in today's message speaks to your heart, we invite you to stay. Click subscribe. Ring the bell, not just to follow us, but to remind yourself, each day, that you are on your way home. We begin with the truth. Life is suffering. But from there, we walk together toward liberation, compassion, and a deep peace that no one can take away. 2. Suffering, the first truth we don't want to hear. There's a truth we spend most of our lives trying to avoid, a simple, undeniable truth hidden beneath the noise of dreams, ambitions, and the stories we tell ourselves. A truth the Buddha revealed over 2,500 years ago. Life is suffering. But suffering here doesn't just mean physical pain or the big tragedies of life like illness, loss, or death. In the Buddha's teachings, the word dukkha goes deeper. It speaks to a quiet dissatisfaction that underlies even our happiest moments, a subtle sense that something is missing, even when everything seems fine. You might have a steady job, a loving family, a good life by most standards. And yet, in those quiet moments, when the applause fades, when the phone stops ringing, you may feel a vague emptiness, a whisper inside that says, "Is this really it?" That's dukkha. It's the unease that creeps in when joy starts to fade, when change comes too soon, when we try to hold on to what was never meant to last. Suffering is not an enemy. It's a silent teacher, always inviting us to look deeper, to see that nothing in this impermanent world can offer lasting peace. Love shifts. Health fades. Fame disappears. Even the sweetest moments carry the seeds of their own ending. The Buddha didn't tell us this truth to make us fearful. He shared it to wake us up, to help us stop clinging to what can't stay, and start seeing clearly. He wasn't asking us to reject life. He was asking us to stop grasping at it like it could save us from change. Because clinging, to people, to things, to feelings, is the true source of our suffering. As the Buddha said, the first noble truth is that life is suffering. But this isn't a cold, hopeless statement. When we hear it with an open heart, it becomes a doorway. A doorway to insight, to compassion, to freedom. Only when we're willing to face suffering, to name it, to sit with it, can we begin to transform it. Not by fighting harder, but by seeing more clearly. Suffering is not the end. It's the beginning of a life lived honestly, mindfully, and deeply awake. 3. The 3 types of suffering, when pain wears many faces. Not all suffering looks the same. Some forms of pain arrive like a sharp knife, loud, undeniable, the grief of loss, the sting of illness, the ache of separation. But others are much quieter, like a soft mist drifting through each moment. They linger in the background of daily life, unnamed, unnoticed, but deeply felt. The Buddha taught that suffering does not arise from just one cause, nor does it wear only one face. He spoke of 3 types of dukkha, 3 ways suffering manifests in our human experience. 1. Dukkha dukkha, the suffering of pain. This is the most obvious kind of suffering, the kind we all know. Physical pain, emotional hurt, hunger, sickness, aging, and death. It's the cry of a newborn. The tears when someone we love is gone. The aching body on a hospital bed. This kind of suffering is universal, visible, and deeply human. 2. Sankhara dukkha, the suffering of change. This is the pain that comes from knowing nothing stays the same. You feel happiness, but fear quietly follows. How long will it last? You love someone. But deep down, you know, change is inevitable. Everything is constantly shifting, from joy to sorrow, gain to loss. Even the most beautiful moments can't be held onto forever. This instability becomes its own form of suffering. 3. Viparinama dukkha, the suffering of disappointment. This is the pain of losing what we hope to keep. Or when reality doesn't match our expectations. A relationship falls apart. A dream slips away. A moment you longed for doesn't turn out the way you imagined. We suffer not just because something is lost, but because we once believed. Maybe this time, things will last. These 3 types of suffering are not here to frighten us, but to wake us up. They are not a sentence, but an invitation. An invitation to see deeply into the nature of life. To realize that suffering persists not because life is cruel, but because we keep clinging to what was never meant to stay. And only when we truly see these layers of suffering, can we begin to gently unbind ourselves. Not by avoiding life, but by approaching it with mindfulness and understanding. Then, suffering no longer chains us. It becomes the gateway to liberation. 4. Avoiding suffering, the modern mistake. In today's world, we'll do almost anything not to feel our pain. With a single tap, we can dive into hours of scrolling, binge-watching, shopping, or endless to-do lists. We stay busy, always on the move. Always connected, convincing ourselves we're living fully. But often, we're just running. Running from emptiness. Running from the feeling of not being enough. Running from the questions that rise in the silence. But here's the truth. Pain doesn't disappear just because we avoid it. In fact, when left unacknowledged, suffering grows in the shadows. It shows up in quiet anxiety, in emotional fatigue, in a deep sense of disconnection, even when everything looks fine on the surface. Avoidance doesn't heal us. It delays healing. As one beautiful reminder says, healing doesn't begin by fixing, it begins by facing. Facing your pain is not weakness. It's courage. It's the quiet strength of saying, I'm hurting, and I won't run from it anymore. The Buddha never promised to take away our suffering. He offered something deeper, the invitation to stop running and to see clearly. Because only when we return to ourselves, and sit with our pain like an old companion, can we begin to understand that suffering is not our enemy. It's a message. A signal that something inside us needs care, needs compassion, needs to be heard. In an age obsessed with distraction, success, and instant gratification, turning inward is a radical act. We don't need to be stronger, or more perfect. We need to be more honest with ourselves. Because real healing doesn't begin with denial. It begins with a gentle kind of truth, the kind that whispers, I am in pain. And I am strong enough to hold it. 5. Why the Buddha didn't stop at suffering. In the Four Noble Truths, the profound insight the Buddha realized under the Bodhi tree, suffering is only the first truth. He began with suffering not to make us despair, but to open a doorway. A way to see life clearly, without illusion. And yet, the Buddha didn't stop there. He didn't just say, life is suffering. If that were all, it would be a hopeless, heavy teaching, something that might lead us to give up. But Buddhism was never about despair. It is a path of hope grounded in wisdom. And freedom rooted in truth. The Buddha taught that where there is suffering, there is also a cause. And because there is a cause, there can be an end. We suffer because of ignorance. Because of craving. Because we cling to things that are always changing. Not because life is punishing us. But because we haven't yet understood its true nature. And when we see clearly the root of suffering, we also see the way out. This is the third noble truth, the cessation of suffering. And the fourth, the Noble Eightfold Path, which shows us how to walk with mindfulness, with right view, right intention, right livelihood, and more. The Buddha didn't teach to make us feel stuck. He taught to help us wake up. Because suffering is not a punishment, it is an invitation to awaken. If we can look at our pain without running from it, we may hear what it's quietly trying to say. Come home to yourself. Come back to this moment. See what is real, beyond illusion. An enlightened person is not someone who no longer feels pain, but someone who no longer suffers because of it. Because they no longer cling, no longer resist. They simply understand. If the Buddha had stopped at suffering, his teachings would have left us in the dark. But instead, he gave us a path. Perhaps the most powerful spiritual map humanity has ever known. So if you are suffering right now, don't fall into despair. Remember, suffering is not the end. It is the beginning of a deeper journey. A journey toward understanding, compassion, and true inner freedom. We often believe that freedom means the absence of suffering. But the Buddha revealed a deeper truth. Freedom does not come from avoiding pain, it comes from walking through it with awareness and understanding. Mindfulness is not a magic trick that makes the pain vanish. It is a gentle, steady light, one that illuminates the depths of our suffering so we can face it without fear. When we meet our emotions with full presence, without judgment or resistance, suffering no longer feels like a dark abyss. It becomes a path that leads us home to ourselves. I remember the story of a woman who lost her only child. Her world collapsed. No words could comfort her. No philosophy could reach her. For a long time, she sat in silence, breathing through grief. One breath at a time. Through her mindfulness practice, she slowly began to look into her pain, not to get over it, not to push it away, but to hold it tenderly, as part of her truth. She shared that one day, with tears falling freely, she whispered, "My child, I am here with this sorrow. I will not reject it anymore." In that moment, something began to shift. The pain didn't disappear, but it no longer drowned her. It transformed into a stream of love, a connection that lived beyond words. She began to live again, not because the grief faded, but because she stopped fighting it. This is true transformation. And it always begins with being fully present for what is. Mindfulness doesn't promise that you'll stop crying, or that your heart won't ache. But it helps you stay rooted, so you don't get lost in the pain. You can hurt, but not despair. You can remember, but with a heart wide open. Because the greatest freedom isn't about escaping life. It's about learning to walk through it, with clarity, with grace, with compassion. That's when suffering loses its power to define you. That's when peace no longer depends on the outside world. In each moment, no matter how heavy, you can touch something unshakable within you. And that is the greatest gift of mindfulness practice. An inner freedom that is real, deep, and cannot be taken away, that if you dare to face your suffering, you are already living truthfully. If you can look deeply into your pain, without turning away, you are already walking toward liberation. The path does not go around suffering. It goes through it, with awareness, with gentleness, with presence. In a world that tells us to always be okay, to hide our wounds, to move on quickly, simply choosing to stay with what hurts is an act of profound courage. You are not broken for feeling pain. You are not weak for needing time. You are human. And in your willingness to be with the full truth of your experience, both the beauty and the sorrow, you begin to touch something sacred. True healing is not about fixing yourself. It's about finally allowing yourself to feel, to listen, to hold space for your heart, just as it is. When you stop running, when you stop numbing, you begin to see clearly, pain is not the enemy. It's a doorway, a teacher, a quiet guide back to your own presence. So if you are hurting right now, breathe. Come home to yourself. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be here. That is enough. That is powerful. That is real. And in that space of deep honesty, freedom begins. That if something in today's video truly touched you, a single phrase, a moment of stillness, or just a quiet feeling in your chest, perhaps it wasn't by chance. Maybe it was a soft whisper from within, gently calling you back home. The Dharma journey isn't just another YouTube channel. It's a space for deep listening, a space where stories are shared from the heart, and insights are offered not to teach you something new, but to help you remember what your soul already knows, but may have forgotten in the noise of daily life. If you ever feel tired from the world's chaos, if you're searching for something more real, more honest, then you're in the right place. We're here, walking this path beside you. So please, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and let's walk together, gently, mindfully, learning to see life through the lens of wisdom, compassion, and presence. Because the road isn't always easy, and sometimes, we get lost. But the moment we pause, breathe, and truly show up, that's enough. That's when the journey begins again. And in each return, you'll start to see, peace was never far. It's always been here, patiently waiting for you to stop, breathe, and listen.